Hey guys, welcome back to the Rusty Beauty's shop and to the second episode of this 1975 Spitfire wiring harness replacement. So we are replacing the original wiring harness with an advanced out wire wiring harness, which is like all new wiring schematic. It has nothing to do with the original. It has relays on many of the circuits. It has 8 fuses instead of the 3 I believe that originally were on this car, so it is a much better option. So in the last episode we ran most of the wires under the dash to their dedicated spots and we terminated them so they're ready to be plugged into the switches and gauges. We also connected the rear harness that goes to the tail light and the components in the boot. So what's left now under the dash is only the ignition switch and the heater. And once these are connected, we're gonna go under the bonnet and we're gonna deal with all the wires in the engine bay. But first, let's finish what's left under the dash. So now I came back here to the heater. I wanted to hook up the heater, but I got confused. It took me a while to figure out how things work, because there's 3 wires coming out of the motor. 2 are terminated here, and the black one I hooked up to the motor already because that's where it goes. And there's another spade here where we can put power later. But it took me a while to figure out how it works because this is what the schematic shows. According to the schematic, we have power here on the switch, and then the switch powers up either one wire on the motor or the other wire. Then I looked at the switch, which is also a very interesting switch. You can see here it has only 2 wires, and this is where these 2 wires were hooked up. And that's it, there's no third wire. So obviously these 2 wires connect to ground. So now they're both disconnected because this slider here is sliding on the nylon pad here, not on the metal. But when you pull, now I can pull with one hand, there you go. Pulled once, now this wire is connected to ground, and then when you pull once more, you can do it one-handed, but then this slider goes on the other slide and connects the other wire to ground. So the switch provides ground to the motor, not power. The power goes directly to the motor. And this is not rheostat. I thought initially that this was rheostat, but it's not. It doesn't change the resistance here. This is just sliding, because here you can put also the cable for the heater valve, I guess, and you can control how much the heater valve is open while you're still making contact here to this, whether one or the other speed. But again, this provides ground to the motor because these I checked already. They connect directly to the body of the switch, which is connected to ground. So this here won't work. So how it works, there's a resistor that has 2 separate coils, like 2 separate resistors inside. One side is connected and on the other side they're individual. So if you drive this to the motor on one side and you connect the other side of the motor to power, now you need ground either here or here, and that's where the switch comes in place. We have the switch which is connected to ground on one side, and we send ground either to this one or to this one side of the resistor with the switch. So that's how the system works. So I have to modify this, put it the proper way, and this resistor is inside the air chamber under the blower, so it can get cooled because it becomes hot. That's why it's inside. So you can see that's why I connected this black wire here to one side of the motor. This is the power that I run here for the switch, but actually now it has to go right here to the other side of the motor, and these 2 wires are gonna come here now, and they're gonna hook up to the back of the switch, and the switch then is connected to ground. Okay, this is how I modified it. The green comes directly to the motor, and the switch one side is connected to ground, and then the 2 wires go directly to the motor inside, and I Didn't show the resistor, but the resistor is inside the heater fan housing anyways, so it's not shown on the diagram. So we're gonna clean up this diagram at the end. Maybe we're gonna redraw some parts of it in the computer. We're gonna make it clear, and we're gonna send it to the owner in case in future he needs to take it somewhere else. They will have the diagram. Okay, so the heater switch is installed here. Don't pay attention to this wire. This is for the stereo, so it's coming from the ignition switch. And I have all the 5 wires now that go to the back of the ignition switch. That includes this one that I just showed you for the radio, and the gray one, or slate I guess they call it, which is for the anti-run-on valve. So I run that to the front in the engine bay, and I just pulled these out. They normally hang down there, but I pulled them out because it's easier to work here. And turns out that the kit comes with this multi-pin connector or multi-pin connector that is for the ignition switch. And actually there's a second one here that I believe is for these. They wanted me to put them in a multi-pin connector, but you see there's 2, 4, 5 here. Yeah, and there's another one with 4. So I could have used these, but I didn't know. But also the 2 multi-pin connectors are the same, so I don't want them, for example, to plug in the lights into the ignition switch. So we're gonna use only this one. The other one we're gonna return to the owner. Like this is how all Triumphs are connected individually here, but with bullets. So that's already an improvement. So anyways, I'm gonna push these into the female part, I believe, in this connector. And then the other 5 are these ones. This is the original plug that comes from the ignition switch. So I'm gonna crimp and plug these into the black part, and then these go together, and that's gonna finish everything under the dash, I believe, except of the stereo. So yeah, give me some time to do that, and I'll show you then. Probably we're gonna move to the engine bay where we have a huge mess of wires. Okay, the 2 connectors for the ignition switch are installed as well. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to plug them in one-handed, but maybe. Well, that's how it is. So later everything, of course, is gonna be tucked in and hidden. Maybe next we're gonna just hook up the radio, like the connector for the stereo, on the other side, and that's everything for the under the dash. Well, other than the reverse light. All right, it's the next day, and yesterday in the afternoon we worked a little bit with Nick on his Miata here, working on the wheel arch and stuff. And we're gonna continue this afternoon, but this morning I want to work on the Spitfire. I believe now I'm done with the interior. Actually, let me show you. So the panel nicely mounted, cleaned up. All grounds are hooked up to that stud over there. These are all the wires that we didn't use and we don't need for now, but I'm not gonna just cut them short. I'm just gonna tuck them nicely here somewhere when we are done here. This is for the stereo. So this is the power harness for the stereo. There's 3 wires here. They should be yellow, red, and black, but for whatever reason Triumph decided years ago that they're gonna use purple, white with purple and black. So whatever. This was here. This is for the speakers. So the 2 rear ones are connected. The front ones, there were no front ones, so the wires are here but just sitting. So we're gonna group these somehow later. Here we have the blower motor switch. We have all the wires here for the gauges, and also the headlight switch to illumination for the gauges, and this is for the brake warning light. Here we have also all the wires that go to the back of the tachometer and speedometer, voltage stabilizer, again illumination, some oil pressure light, alternator warning light, hazard switch, and of course grounds for the back of the tachometer and speedometer because they mount to wood, so they need to be grounded. Then on this side we have the signal switch on the column connected here, the headlight dip switch or high beam, low beam. Then we have the ignition switch, and here in the back we have the harness that goes to the brake pedal switch, and windshield wipers. This is the indicator dash lamp, and this is for the rheostat, which does not exist on this car, so it's just gonna be a switch. The rheostat, that's the dimmer for the headlight, for the illumination on the dash. Here, this is the connection to the harness for the tail lights and everything in the back. And the only thing that is not hooked up yet is the reverse lights. These, we still need to run a wire to the reverse light switch, which we can't access yet. And the rest of the wires are going to the engine bay. So I believe under the dash we are done, but we're gonna keep everything as is for now until we test it. And once everything is tested, then we're gonna try to put it in wrapping. There's a lot of split shroud, I think it's called, in the trunk of the car that came with this kit. So we're gonna do that when we test everything and we make sure that everything works. So we are up to the engine bay, and here, you know, these are all the wires that... So what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna clean up here to see what is what, because we have electronic ignition, and this is the leftover of the resistor wire, so we don't need that anymore. I ordered a new coil, 3 ohm coil for 12 volt system. This I'm gonna pull out, sorry Rob. Rob put that so he can pull out the choke cable later, but I'm gonna deal with that myself. Here there's a relay that is, I'm assuming, not needed anymore. Actually, that's a dimmer. What is this? LED halogen light universal CAN FM flasher. Why do you need flasher for the halogen lights? Anyway, we're gonna get rid of that, and here we have some wires. We have a whole bunch of grounds connected there on the starter solenoid. So anyway, that's where I'm gonna be today if you need me. This is where you can find me. I'm gonna clean up all these wires and then we're gonna start running these. And the idea is to run them again where they're gonna go. We're gonna connect them to everywhere. We're gonna test everything, and if everything works, then we're gonna have to pull it out again completely so we can wrap it and then run it again, because, you know, that's how it works. All right, half an hour later, and all these wires are now run to their dedicated spots and passed because they're longer, but I didn't shorten anything yet. So as you can see, they all turn that way, but here they branch off, and these 3 here are for the solenoid. One is the main power that goes inside for the block, and the other yellow one is the one that goes to the alternator to charge the battery. So these 2 will be hooked up together to the top of the solenoid, where also the positive cable from the battery is going to be hooked up. The bottom one on the solenoid is of course the starter, and then the white with red is the trigger for the solenoid, the one that when you turn the ignition to crank position, this wire becomes live and triggers the solenoid and closes these 2 big terminals there, and that makes the starter cranking. So that's these 3. These here are for the coil. So the white is the ignition wire, the yellow with white is the tachometer, which is gonna go to this terminal where the negative of the coil is. That's also the one that the electronic ignition is gonna cut off for every spark. So basically the yellow with white is gonna be connected here, and it's gonna tell the tachometer how many times a minute the coil sparks. And then it's gonna divide that by 2, of course, because for every 2 rotations of the crankshaft, we have all 4 cylinders fire. So anyways, then we have the black with purple. Oh, that's the brake switch. That's this one, which I don't have the connector for, the PDWA, pressure differential warning assembly, but I don't have the connector for this. Hopefully it's on the old harness, so I'm gonna tell Rob that this wire needs to be hooked up here. Then going down here, there's this green wire, which is for the reverse light switch, and I run it this way because I found the reverse switch wires here. So this green one is going to be terminated here and connected to one of them, and then the other one is going to return and it's going to connect on this wire that is sitting here for the backup lights. So now we found where the backup switch is. Hopefully it works, because I don't want to go under the car and replace it, but if we have to, we're gonna do it. Here we have the oil pressure line, so this is going to be connected here to one of these. One is ground, so we have to run some grounds too, and then the other one is going to go, wow, that came off. And then the third one is going to go from here to the anti-run on valve, on the anti-run on valve. Can say that. And I also have this gray one that is run, that's for the other side of the anti-run on valve. So that's for this one. The yellow is already connected to the alternator. That's the one that charges the battery, that, like we said. This is the field wire, the brown. So that brown is going to be connected here. It actually was connected, but I cut it off because I wanted to clean up here, and I need to shorten it because it's way too long. It's going here too. So anyways, we're gonna redo that. And the green with blue is the temperature sender unit, which is here. So these are these three wires, and everything else goes to the front of the car. It's gonna go under the steering rack later. Like I said, we're gonna have to pull it back later and wrap it, so that's when we're gonna fish it under the steering column or the steering rack. And from here we have headlights for the right side, headlights for the left side. All of them are going to be cut here. We're going to have connection here, so if we want to remove the bonnet, we can just unplug these connections. So from here, these are going to be extended for the left headlight. We have green with white for the right signal and green with red for the left signal, and we also have red for all the marker lights, but these I believe are here. Okay. Oh, the signals are actually, okay, the signals are gonna come here. I forgot. Anyway, and of course we're gonna have to run some grounds. So we're gonna make a ground hub somewhere, maybe here, and where it used to be, and we need to run grounds for the headlights, grounds for the signal lights and marker lights, grounds for even the horns. Oh, I didn't mention this, the purple with yellow, that's for the horns. And I believe that's all the grounds that we need. So like I said, we have to run two more wires, one from the anti-run on valve to the switch, and another one from the reverse light switch to inside the rear harness. And once these two wires are run, then I can start terminating everything, connecting it, and then we're gonna start testing. That's gonna be fun. All right, another update. It looks a little bit cleaner now. So everything is grouped here. These wires, they're grouped, so the solenoid is connected, the ignition coil is connected. Actually, the tachometer cable is not connected yet, because it turns out that this ignition coil requires a male spade connector to go on the negative, but this is not the ignition coil that we're gonna be using anyway, so this connector might need to become a ring connector even, I don't know, we'll see. So for now it's just sitting here. The wire that needs to connect to the brake switch is sitting here. The reverse switch is connected. I cut the bullets off and I put spade connectors. The oil pressure switch is hooked up, all three wires, ground, the dash light, and the one that goes to the anti-run-on valve. the alternator is connected, and the temperature sending unit is connected. Then we have two grounds that come here. One is the main ground, run all the way to the battery. It's not hooked up yet, that one. And that comes here. That's gonna ground my horn button, but also it's gonna turn this stud here into a ground stud. So that's where we're gonna connect the other ground to. That's the one that goes here to the switch. And then we're gonna run a few more grounds from here forward for the headlights and the signals and the marker lights and all that. So these, of course, we're gonna remove. These are the old ones that were cut. All right, it is the next day and I'm already, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours into it today, and I haven't filmed anything, but I told you what I was gonna do, so I don't know what I showed you, what I haven't, so I'm gonna show you everything, and then maybe during editing, if something is repeated, I'm gonna cut it off. Maybe I'm just gonna leave it. Anyway, so I believe I showed you that the solenoid was wired. We just need to hook up the battery, which that's why it's still loose, but all the wires are hooked up to the solenoid. Then the power for the starter here, oh, that's loose. Okay, we need to tighten that. And then here the reverse lights are hooked up, the oil pressure switch, the alternator with the, and then the temperature sender. From there the harness continues. Here we have a whole bunch of grounds. Here the whole harness here can be detached, so you can remove the bonnet completely, and then from there it splits into the right headlight and halo, because we have halo in these lights. That's interesting, I'm gonna show you. I also hooked up the signal lights to the halo, so when the signals are flashing, also the halo is gonna be flashing orange. And the marker light on the side of the fender, and same here on this side. We have headlight, marker light, halo, and everything. And then here also one part of the harness comes and hooks up to this marker light and signal on this side. Same for the other side, and also the anti-run-on valve is hooked up as well. And the horns, of course. The horns are grounded, the body of the horns is grounded, so they only need power. So that's what the harness looks like. Like I said multiple times already, we're gonna pull it out later and we're gonna wrap it. Just need to make sure that everything works well before that. So the last thing we want to do in the engine bay is now replace the coil, because we got this new coil here. We're gonna measure it just in case to make sure it's 3 ohm. We're gonna remove the 1.5 ohm coil, and then we're gonna hook up all the wires here, and we need to hook up the electronic ignition also, which these are the wires for the electronic ignition. We're gonna have to hook these up, and we're gonna be done in the engine bay. We're still not gonna hook up the main power because it is we don't want anything to be powered yet. And then we're gonna come here inside and we're gonna hook up all the gauges, illuminations for the gauges, whichever gauges need power, they're gonna get power, all the wires, everything. We're just gonna leave them hanging. We're not gonna mount them yet, because if something doesn't work, we need to be able to troubleshoot. But we're gonna hang everything, so each and every wire needs to be hooked up to something. And then we're gonna remove all the fuses and we're gonna start testing circuit by circuit, but we're gonna get there. Okay, the new ignition coil is installed and everything is hooked up here now. So we have the white is the ignition, the yellow with white is the tachometer, which counts the revs. Red and black are for the electronic ignition. The electronic ignition also has its own ground. I don't know why it's purple, but that's where it was hooked up before. And from the electronic ignition there's this gray harness which has 3 wires in it. I don't know why 3, but it is with this connector here is connected to the unit inside that replaces the points in the distributor. So that was done. I tightened the started cable here, tighten it down there. This one is still loose because we still have to hook up the battery here. You see the cable is still sitting on top of the battery, but that's everything for the engine bay. That's what's left here, only the battery cable. Then I came here and I hooked up everything. Well, not everything, but I'll show you. There's some things that are not hooked up yet. First of all, I don't know why I left this wire so long, so I still have to shorten it here because it plugs into this harness. So we're gonna do that later. And then starting left to right, this is the signal indicator for the dash. It comes somewhere here. The switch that replaces the rheostat for the illumination lights for the gauges. This is the illumination for the little tab that says wiper wash or something like that, but I'm missing the thing like that is missing. I don't have it. We will see at the end what we're gonna do. And I don't also have a bulb for this fixture. I don't even know what kind of a bulb that is, but we're gonna test to see if we have power here. That's how we're gonna test this part. Hazard switch here. I have to cut this one shorter and just put it here. It's not used, we don't need this wire. And then we have here, what does this say? Oh, that's the hazard illumination. That's the little tab on the dash that says hazards. It comes right under the hazard switch. Then here we have the back of the speedometer. This is the voltage stabilizer, the illumination. These are ignition lamp, high beam and oil pressure light, and a ground here that's basically used for the illumination only, nothing else. And then the other one is the tachometer. So you see, that's the one that is not connected. So I have ground and illumination, but the tachometer in this car is electrical. So like I said, the yellow with white wire counts the times the coil makes spark and gives this information to the tachometer. And on the other side, the tachometer has power. But I don't know whether these wires go like this or like this, you know what I mean? So that's why I haven't connected them yet. And you see they have different connectors. I have to do a research or I have to test it. I don't know what's gonna happen if I connect it reverse. It's power and ground, so I don't know, we'll see. And then here we have the temperature and fuel gauges with power from the voltage stabilizer, and then their appropriate sender units are connected there too. Illumination on both gauges, and in the center is the headlight switch, and this is the brake warning light here. That's the only one that's connected. Fasten seat belts and EGR are not used. We're not gonna use them, they're just gonna sit there. And here, the last thing, this needs to come here, but I just let it hang here. This is the blower fan switch, which needs ground to work, so we have to remember when we test it to maybe touch it somewhere here or whatever. And here even the radio is hooked up. These are the harnesses. So for the radio though, I don't have antenna. I just realized that we don't have an antenna. We have an antenna in the boot, we just don't have the wire for it here. It's not run, or at least I don't see it anywhere. Anyways, we're gonna look for that later. And that's it. I think we are ready to start testing it. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take out all the fuses from there. This is how they are. Most of them are 15 amp. The two top middle are 20 amp, and the one on the right is 30. That I'm guessing is the main power, but we're gonna go with the manual for that. So I'm just gonna take them all out, and we're gonna connect the battery, and we will see if anything is clicking, smoking, smelling, burning and stuff like that. Hopefully not, but we gotta be safe. All right, there you go. The fuses are all out, so let's see. Oh, what is that? Some relay is clicking somewhere. We have all the fuses out and a relay is clicking when I connect them. Let's see if the ignition is on actually. I think the ignition is on, but we will see. something here. Oh, you see that? Spark. So here, this is not making a good contact, but if we're sparking here, this means that the ignition is on. Was the ignition left on? Yes. Okay. Boys, you left the ignition on. Okay, the ignition switch is off, but why is the ignition not fused? Anyway, let's see now. Okay, nothing is clicking now. So let's connect it. And that's the first problem that I see. Why is the ignition coming on with all the fuses off? Okay, so this is normal because this is the main power relay and this is its coil and this is its contacts on this side. So the main power relay, it's not fused apparently. So from the battery, power goes to this power terminal, from there it goes to the ignition switch, and from the ignition switch, when you turn the ignition on, it goes and powers this relay, which on the other side has ground here. So this relay is not fused. That is surprising, but anyways, that's how it is. Okay. So even without fuses, when we turn the ignition on, we have the main power. So that's fine. Should we test also the starter? I want to see the starter, so let's see. Okay. By the way, I disconnected the electronic ignition so we don't damage it. So let's see if it is just gonna crank quickly. Perfect. Okay, we're not gonna crank it more than that. So even without fuses, it cranks. Anyway, so here are our fuses actually. And I was wrong. This 30 amp fuse was not for the main power. It is for a cooling fan that we don't even have. So let's start from left to right. So we have courtesy lights and radio memory. So this we can plug in. We don't have courtesy lights, so we didn't connect them. So the only thing that we use that purple wire for, actually that purple wire is also used, the radio memory. We use that purple wire somewhere else. For headlights, I believe, but anyway. So this we can put on. This is 15 amp. Nothing is smoking, nothing is burning, but we don't know if the memory is working on the radio because we can't turn it on yet, I guess, because we don't have power on the other wire, the other power, the red wire for the radio. Horns and hazards. Okay, let's put the 20 amp here. Okay, horns. Nope. Horns are not working. We don't know why. Now, this steering wheel, you have to actually hack it normally to make the horns work here. And I'm assuming that they didn't do the hack. No, they actually did. So why is it not working then? Okay, our test doesn't go very well. So far, one thing doesn't work. Horns don't work. Let's see hazards. Yes, hazards work, relay clicks, and this light works. So remember we did all this diode work here for this light, but it works, so we're good. Let's see if everything else works on the outside. Yeah, this one works, that one works, the one on the left works, and the one on the right works, I can see, but let's go check. This one works, and this one works. Great. All right, next, cigarette lighter and accessories. I don't know what accessories they're talking about, but let's put it on. It was, oh, I put 30 amp there. Okay, sorry, that was supposed to be 20 here, right? Another 20. Okay, I don't know what accessories they're talking about, but let's put this one. So this one is windshield wiper, gauges, and turn signals. Okay, windshield wipers. Let's test the windshield wipers. We need to have the ignition on for that, right? Again, the electronic ignition is disconnected, so I can turn the ignition on, no problem. So is this turn? Yes. One speed and second speed. Let's see if the park is gonna work. Yes. Yep, the park works as well. So that's good. Signals. Something is clicking. Yes, this one is working. And this one is working. The right signal is not working. Why? If the left one is working, the right should be working too. So we're gonna have to check this. Maybe the switch is not good. Okay, we're gonna have to disconnect this and see if we have power out. We know that we have power into the switch, but we don't know if we have power out for the right signal. So we're gonna check that. So we still have more wins than losses so far, so we should be good. So turn signals, gauges. Well, gauges we don't know. Actually, the ignition is on. So fuel, for fuel it shows full. Let's disconnect this wire from here and see what is gonna show now. If it still shows full, this tells me that we have a short in this wire somewhere. Nope, now it starts going down. So the short is inside the sender unit. You know what I mean? Because when you connect directly to ground, it goes to more than full. Okay, we're gonna investigate that too. Okay, next, what is this? Heater, reverse lights, and brake lights. I hate when they spell lights like this. And it's like, okay, doesn't matter. Anyway, let's put the next fuse in. Another 15 amp. Okay. So reverse lights, that I'm curious about. So we need to have the ignition on for that. Let's turn the ignition on. I don't know if that's reverse. Let's go check. Because the reverse, oops, apparently the reverse lights were not working, and they are not. Okay, I don't know if that's reverse though, because it's really hard to put it in reverse. Actually, the shifter doesn't go down at all. No, that's not reverse, that's first. Okay, that's something to check when we start the car. Heater. Okay, to check the heater, I need two hands. So I'll put you on a tripod, but brake lights. Let's check the brake lights now. Yes. Brake lights work. And the fan. Let me put you on a tripod for that. Okay, so the ignition is on. I wonder if the lights are on here. Oh yeah, the ignition light is on. The oil pressure light is not on. That should be on right now. Huh. Maybe it's on one of the other fuses. I don't know. But anyways, now we should be able to turn the fan on. So we're gonna put it here, connected to ground. Oops. Oh, okay, because it's on already, so that's off. Speed 1. Come on. I wanna pull. Okay, speed 2. So that works. And what else is left here? Fuel pump. So we don't have electric fuel pump. We don't need this fuse. And the last one is parking lights. Okay, let's plug in this and check all the lights because we haven't checked the headlights. Which fuse is for the headlights? I'm gonna turn off the ignition. Now all the fuses that are supposed to be used are there. There are only two fuses that are not on. One is for the cooling fan, which is not in use anyways, and the other one is for the electric fuel pump, which is not there too. So all the other fuses are in. Ignition is off. So now I'm gonna close the bonnet and let's check all the lights. Okay, so one click should be marker lights. Yes, this one is on. You see this? The halo. And this is on, and this is on. That's full lights, low beam, okay. Perfect. I think it's low beam, I don't know. And up, no, that's up, so that's high beam. That's low beam, okay. And it switched, great. But let me show you what happens now if I pull the, let's say I pull the hazard switch. You see? Even the halo blinks in yellow. That's great. Turn it off. Turn the ignition on. Left signal. The left signal works. This flickers too. But the right one doesn't work, we said, right? Yep, the right one doesn't work. Okay, we're gonna figure this out. Let's check the rear lights. So this is the marker lights now. Yes, they work, including the license plate lights and the ones on the side, on the fender here. They work as well. That's full lights, nothing changes, right? So, brake lights. Perfect. Left signal. Left signal works. Right signal doesn't, but we know if we pull the hazards, we know that the actual tail light works. The switch on the column is probably problematic. So the reverse one is only the one that doesn't, we can turn on, but I think it's because we can't go in reverse actually. So we're gonna see that later. Okay, so now with marker lights on, we should have the illumination here, and we do. I don't know if you see here, but these gauges are on. Oh, nice. There's illumination here, and there's illumination here. Flickering a little bit, but that's because of the ground here. Okay, so illumination works. I should be able to turn it off from here, which is stupid, but okay. But turning off the illumination from here doesn't turn off the marker lights, right? Because they're on the same circuit, but this switch breaks it in two. Anyway, and temperature gauge, we don't know if it works. Fuel gauge, we said we have to check the sender unit. And what's left here is the brake warning light. We can check that later. And this illumination, this doesn't work. This should be working right now, but it doesn't. Did I solder the wires backwards? I don't know. I have to check why this is not working. No, it's off. Because this needs to be on right now. The beam, the main beam. This is not on. Why is it not on? This is incandescent bulb, probably it's burnt. Oh, there you go. We're gonna replace this with LED, but you see it works just fine. And the oil pressure light. Oh, this one is LED. So why doesn't this work? Maybe the wires on the switch on the engine bay are not in the right places. So we're gonna look at that. Oh, we never checked the radio. Let's check the radio. So the ignition is on. And the radio is on. We have sound, but we don't have an antenna, so here's an antenna. Okay, whatever it is playing. So, and if we turn off the ignition, yep, it turns off. Alright, so it's another day. So I just wanted to test it quickly the other day, and we found some bugs that need to be fixed. So since we have to fix those, I think we're gonna start a new video about that, troubleshooting and fixing little bugs here and there. But I'm happy that most of the things work. So what do we have? The right signal, the horn, and the reverse lights don't work, if I remember correctly. The oil pressure light and the high beam light, I think, were not working, but I think these are bulb related, or maybe the wires on the switch of the oil for the oil pressure is not hooked up properly. Yeah, so we're gonna figure these out, and then we're gonna go into the engine bay and see if we have spark. Obviously we have spark because it was jumping, right? We just have to make sure that everything works in the engine bay properly. We will see. Anyways, we're gonna leave that for the next video. This one we're gonna end here. So once again, guys, thanks for watching, commenting, subscribing, sharing, supporting me, and all that. It's really appreciated. Thank you so much, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.